That was Ruby Don't Cry by Luca Wilding. The London-based singer-songwriter has carved out a niche in poetic, storytelling songs with a melancholy edge. Now, in November, he released his debut EP, 2, a beautiful and unique collection of dream folk songs with both a powerful, soulful, and haunting voice. Wilding has been dubbed an artist to keep an eye out for. Now, due to the current situation, he's joining me virtually from London. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Luca. Before we talk about your new EP, you're currently back in London, back in lockdown. How has the ongoing coronavirus pandemic affected your musical projects?
First of all, thank you very much for having me on the show. It's really great to be here. But yeah, no, lockdown's been strange. I was due to release my debut EP in April of last year, and we had so much planned. We had recorded these two EPs back to back, and I've been in the studio working assiduously for something like close to 2 years, and we had planned. We'd planned like an industry-only launch event and a single launch, and you quickly realise that these things wouldn't happen. But in another way, it's been quite positive because the time spent in isolation has meant that I can write, I can really improve my playing, and just my frame of references as well. You expand my knowledge, which can only improve my songwriting.
So there's some silver lining there to this forced lockdown. Now, the pandemic has really upended the music industry, and to add to the complication now, there's Brexit. The British government has drawn fire for allegedly rejecting a deal with the EU that would have given musicians such as yourself visa-free touring here on the continent. How do you feel about the future of touring in the post-Brexit world?
Well, it's heartbreaking for session musicians as well, and my band and a lot of my friends are session musicians, and I mean the pandemic has been bad enough for them before Brexit. All of their all of their gigs were wiped out in overnight. I mean, I don't know what will happen, but I feel like for myself I will find a way of making sure I can do what I need to do on the continent. But yeah, it's heartbreaking, and obviously it deservedly has drawn criticism from many parties.
And let's talk about your new EP. So this came out in November. 4 soul-stirring tunes here on this EP. What does the title refer to? It's called 2, and is there a common theme to the songs on the EP? 2
was the name of the final track on the EP. It was a love song that I wrote a couple of years ago, or I began writing a couple of years ago, and it was written about a person whose stage name was Two, T-O, which had a different meaning than she thought it meant at the time. But then I decided to write this song, which kind of like made her name and a toast at the same time, and also the beginning of a letter. And then we kind of felt as we were working through the EP that this group of songs all had that as a similar theme, that they were all kind of love letters to their various subjects, whether that subject was a friend or myself or like an unrequited love or a stranger. They all had this common thread, and we thought that was a really cool unifying factor of all of the songs.
So the EP 2 was released after you released a single that's called Heartacres, and we're going to listen to an extract from that now. That was Heartacres by Luca Wilding. Such a beautiful music video that accompanies that song. You actually won an award for that music video at the Palm Springs International Film Festival in 2019. How important is the visual aspect that accompanies your music?
It's so important. It gives people an opportunity to see what the kind of like inner workings of my visual world are, and how I want to place myself aesthetically. So yeah, I think music videos are super important to an artist's identity.
So Luca, you spent your teens studying poetry and literature, but what's interesting is you didn't really start writing music and songs until later. Was there a spark that inspired you to start writing songs?
Yeah, I had kind of always written songs in a sense that the poems that I used to write were very musical and lyrical, and then slowly I would start to kind of pick up a guitar and thrash together some simple chords to make them sing. But then it kind of been more than about 4 years ago, a very close friend of mine pulled me aside and said to me, you need to be doing something with your music. People need to hear your voice and people need to hear your songs. There was another element to it though, which was that for a long time I didn't feel as though I was ready. I didn't feel as though I had a song to sing. And there's a Bob Dylan line which always stays with me, which is, I will know my song well before I start singing. And I really didn't, I suppose, know who I was up until that point. And then suddenly I realized with these two things that I was ready, and it was quite late, but I'm glad that I waited.
Well, we're glad you waited too, because the songs that you've made are so beautiful. Definitely check out Luca Wilding's debut EP. Right now we're going to move on to some other music news that's making headlines. 5 years after his last release, French trip-hop producer Wax Tailor is dropping Shadow of Their Sons. It's his 6th studio album, and he'll be our guest next week to talk about it. Shadow of Their Sons hopes to offer a glimmer of hope in these apocalyptic times and features vocals from D Smoke, the late Gil Scott-Heron, and Rosemary Stenley, lead singer of the French band Moriarty, as you can hear on this track, Misery.
Seem to be doing well nowadays. Others were unhappy, even worried about themselves, their families, and their futures.
Next, some warmth for these cold months ahead. Rhye are releasing their 4th album, Home. The duo, formed by Canadian singer-songwriter Mike Milosh and Danish instrumentalist Robin Hannibal, are back with their seductive groove and smooth lyrics. Home is the perfect soundtrack and soothing balm for those confined, well, to home in the coming weeks, as you can hear on this track, Helpless.
Come with me, please. Give me hurt, give me love, give me rain. 'Cause if it happens, you're helpless. Or when it happens, I'm selfless. Can you imagine you're getting? I'm getting to you. Oh, it's so jealous, so let me in.
Luca, I've got another question for you. There's a lot of uncertainty about the future of live music given the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. How do you see the future of the music industry? Is it going to go back to the way it was, or are we going to have to start thinking outside of the box?
Well, I really hope that it doesn't just go back to the way it was, but that there's, after this time of great austerity and social restrictions, that there's an outpouring of emotion and that the music scene blossoms. Of course, that's what I hope. I really do strongly believe that after this, after everyone has been cooped up inside for such a long time, there's going to be a huge wave of art, whether that be musical or visual or filmic. I think that it's going to be an exciting time to be an artist in the wake of this pandemic.
I hope that you're right, too. A little glimmer of hope there to hang on to during these tough times. We're going to leave you with one last bit of music news. This is the Los Angeles-based duo Midnight Sister. They're releasing their sophomore album. It's called Painting the Roses. Juliana Giraffe and Ari Baluzian are back with their 70s-inspired Baroque pop and wacky music videos. We're going to leave you with their track, Doctor Says. But before we go, I want to thank my guest, Luca Wilding. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Do be sure to check out his debut EP, 2, and another EP coming out in April. Look forward to talking about that. For more arts and culture news, head to our website and stay in touch on social media. Stay tuned to France 24. More news is coming up right after this.